we are now going to take a look together, or like I'm going to take a look for the first time at the Ashened archetype, which we've seen them in the teaser. And I'm going to be honest with you, they look really, really dope in terms of their artwork, which makes me have high hopes for them. However, I'm gonna talk about my own expectations here before I get unnecessarily disappointed. This is the first wave of a TCG exclusive support, like a TCG exclusive theme, right? And the first wave usually comes with 7 cards. And they have made a little video yesterday on Twitter announcing the cards, and I haven't looked at it yet, and we're gonna look at it now. I'm not expecting a fully functional archetype right out of Phantom Nightmare. That is not what I'm expecting. It's the first wave. It's the first wave of cards. I don't think that it's a viable strategy, or I'm not expecting a viable strategy just yet. But what I am expecting is that they at least have potential, right? At least give them a solid concept with potential for the future. Please make them so I can imagine them being viable with a good second wave. Okay, that's all I'm asking for. That's all I'm asking. Is that much to ask? Is that much to ask for an archetype that they've spent so much effort into making look cool as hell? Let's go.
The key cards for the new Ashen theme are Vados, the Eruption Dragon of Extinction.
Secret rare, by the way. You can tell from the text, from the name. Dark Pyro level 9. During the main phase, if this card is in your hand, quick effect, you can target a card in a field zone, special summon this card to your opponent's field, and if you do, destroy that card. Then you can add to your hand or set 1 Ashened continuous trap from your deck. If this card is sent from your opponent's field to your graveyard, you can destroy all monsters on the field. You can only use each effect of Vados, the Eruption Dragon of Extinction, once per turn. It's funny. Okay, so I'm making an assumption here. In that I believe that means that the Ashened have their own field spell, and that the field spell has something. It does something when it's destroyed, right? That I think that's a fair assumption to make, because otherwise this card would be incredibly like non-thematic, right? So I'm assuming that is the case. In that case, I kind of find this card interesting because it has multi-purpose, right? You can destroy your own field spell, but you can also destroy your opponent's field spell, which I'm gonna be honest with you, I would not underestimate the power of that first effect as a hand trap in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Because field spells are really, really strong. Like that would be very interesting just as a generic card, unironically. Like if you're playing against a deck where field spells are bread and butter, you know, bringing this thing out from your hand to your opponent's field, because the thing is, it's summoned to your opponent's field. It's summoned to your opponent's field, but they can't really do anything with it, because if they link it off or whatever, right, you can blow up their board. The only thing that they could hypothetically do with it is they could overlay it, because it's not sent to the graveyard. But that is, unironically, even if the archetype sucks, that's a card I could see siding in certain formats. Unironically, that's not a bad hand trap against certain decks.
And Obsidian, the Ashen
Okay, there we go. Okay. Face up, special summon monsters your opponent controls become pyro during your turn only. Okay, I like that they make it during your turn only, because that means it's not a floodgate like Zombie World. You can only use each of the following effects of Obsidian, the Ashen City, once per turn. During your end phase, you can target an Obsidian in your grave, place it on the bottom of your deck, then draw a card. If this card in the field zone is destroyed or banished, you can special an Ashen from your deck. There you go. That's what you want to do with the Vados. You want to destroy your own Obsidian to summon another one from your deck. Okay, not a great field spell, because it's not part of any one card combos. It doesn't do anything on its own, you know, but it's not terrible either, you know. Yeah, field spell gets negated if it's destroyed, right? Well, not exactly, it's not the right way to put it, but if your opponent activates, for example, Primeval Planet Pearl Rhino, which adds on activation, if you destroy it before it resolves, they don't get to add. it doesn't resolve successfully. The effect does not resolve. They cannot search because continuous cards need to stay on the field to resolve their effects.
Is preferable, as Obsidian can return a copy of itself from your graveyard to the bottom of your deck to let you draw a card during your end phase. There's one more line of text there at the start, which will be important momentarily, but at the most basic level, what you want to do is put Obsidian on the field, then destroy it with Vados, special summon Vados to your opponent's field, get an Ashened Continuous Trap from your deck, and special summon an Ashen monster from your deck.
Oh, we got all three on the same screen here. Okay. We have King of the Ashened City, which is a level 8 Pyro Dark. They're all Pyro Darks, by the way. Oh, this one is a bonfire target. I was about to ask, where's the bonfire search target? There it is. Okay. If Obsidian the Ashened City is in the field zone, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon King of the Ashened City once per turn this way. During your main phase, you can special summon an Ashened monster from your hand, except King of the Ashened City, or if your opponent controls a monster with 2800 or more attack, you can special summon it from your deck instead. You can only use this effect of King of the Ashened City once per turn. Okay, so if you give your opponent Vados, like let's say Obsidian plus Vados, right? Let's say you have the field spell plus Vados. You can special Vados by destroying the field spell. The field spell then special summons King of the Ashened City, right? And then King of the Ashened City, because your opponent has a monster with 2800 or more attack, you can special summon one from the deck. Okay. Hero of the Ashened City. If Obsidian is in the field zone, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon it once per turn this way. During the main phase, quick effect, you can target a Pyro on the field, destroy it. Then, if you destroyed Vados, you can place an Obsidian from your deck face up in your field zone. You can only use this effect of Hero of the Ashened City once per turn. Is Vados... Hold up, I need to... Is Vados mandatory? No, you can destroy... Okay, you don't have to destroy your own field that way. Okay. Priestess of the Ashened City. If Obsidian the Ashened City is in the field zone, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only summon it once per turn this way. If this card is normal or special, you can add one Ashened card from your deck to your hand, except Priestess of the Ashened City. I mean, that's good. Okay, that's good. So you get a bonfire target that's also a Rhoda for all of your other cards. I have 2 problems with this so far. 2 problems so far. My first problem is that Vados is not called Ashened, which means that Vados is not searchable whatsoever so far. Which is a problem because so far from what I've seen, I believe Vados is the best. I think it's the best card out of these. But yeah, okay. My second problem is that Vados is ashable, because it's destroy the field spell, then special summon this, then you can add. So you can, if your opponent activates a field spell and you try to Vados them, they can ash it. Which I find annoying, because then otherwise you'd be able, like, they should have just made it on summon, I think. They should have made it on summon. It would have been stronger card design if they made it like you can target a field spell, destroy it, summon this card. If this card is special summoned this way, you can add. Like that way it would trigger when it's being summoned. That way you couldn't ash the effect in the hand and you would still be able to remove the field spells. So that's one thing I don't like about this one. These 3 cards... Okay, the video is lagging. These 3 cards I think are okay. The Priestess is pretty good. The Priestess is pretty good. The other 2 are fine. It would be a mandatory trick. Oh, right, it's summoned to your opponent's field. I mean, they could do it like that, but then you would play into Asher, like Talons or Thrust again on your first turn. Yeah, okay. No, fair enough. Fair enough. Because it's summoned to your opponent's field, that would be awkward. Yeah. Why is the video not working? Hello?
The effect special summons from your hand. It greatly expands the reach of which monsters your hero can strike down by changing your opponent's special summon card from your deck, or special summoning. It can set this trap card.
When this card is activated, you can add one Vados or one Ashened monster from graveyard. Okay, not from the deck. All right. You can target one face-up monster your opponent controls that you own. Take control of that monster. Then you can make all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls lose attack equal to the targeted monster's original attack. This attack change lasts until the end of this turn. You can only use this effect of Ashened for eternity once per turn. Okay. I believe this card is not that great on its own. The only thing that would probably make you play this card is the fact that you get it for free from your Vados. Like a one of search target. It's not great though, I think. It's not great. I would say it's terrible. I wouldn't call it terrible. I wouldn't go that far, but it's not phenomenal.
Directly from your deck. So if you destroy your opponent's field spell on the first turn of the game and give them Vados, they now have to deal with the fact that you can just take it back from them on your turn if they leave it on the field, or if they get rid of it, you can wipe out all monsters on the field, add Vados back to your hand, give it over to them again on your turn, and then take it back from them with the trap. In the process, your opponent's monsters will lose 20...
I do think that Vados is a good card. And this card just supports Vados further, which isn't bad, because it does create some weird situations for your opponent. But the main use for Vados that I can think of is when I'm using it on my opponent's field spell. That's the way I'm looking at Vados right now. Like if I'm trying to counter, I don't know, Manadium or anything like that, right? I'm going second, I'm putting in a hand trap for field spells, right? And then if I play the trap for this, and I hope to not draw it, right? And if it's I summon Vados, I get the trap, and then it is really awkward for my opponent, right? It's awkward for my opponent because if they somehow get rid of the Vados, they also have to deal with the fact that I can blow up their entire field, and then I can use the trap to even add the Vados back from my graveyard, which we already established that it's a pretty good card against certain, like if I'm playing against a field spell deck, right? Being able to destroy a field spell on turn 1 and then later on add the same Vados back from my graveyard to my hand, like you can win the grind game against field spell based decks just based off of drawing the Vados with that, right? Because you get it's a lot of interaction for your opponent for a field spell based strategy. Now, obviously, that does not have anything to do with Ashened as its own deck, because that is something you can use Vados for generically.
100 attack points, likely leaving them with nothing. A successful strike with Vados and all 3 Ashen monsters will deal exactly 8,000 damage.
Oh.
So you'll be putting your opponent in a difficult spot from the word go. I've spoken a lot about the...
Okay, this is card number 7, which means it's the last one, right? Awakening of Vados. Place one opposite him from your deck face up in either field zone. Oh! Then if your opponent controls a card in their field zone, you can add a level 5 or higher Dark Pyro monster from your deck to your hand. For the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you can't special summon from deck or extra, except Pyro. So... hold up, let me read the field spell again. In the field... okay. No, this card is good. This card is good. It does lock you. It does lock you into basically... I mean, what is it? Pyro monsters from the extra deck. That's a harsh lock. It's a harsh lock for this card. But it is still a very, very strong card because it searches Vados. It's a... this is just a 1-card combo, isn't it? For the sake of this deck, right? Like you activate this, you give them the field spell, so you can search Vados. Then you can Vados destroy your opponent's field spell. Right? You've destroyed your opponent's field spell. Vados summons to their field. You get to search the trap card. The field spell triggers to special summon an Ashened monster from your deck. You special summon King of the Ashened City. King of the Ashened City, because your opponent has Vados, can special summon Priestess of the Ashened City. Or Hero of the Ashened City. Yeah. You know, I don't agree that this all feels terrible. I feel like this is almost this is almost as good as it gets, to be honest, I think. And once again, it's a matter of expectations. And like I said earlier, I did not expect to receive a viable strategy right out of Phantom Nightmare. And I don't think it is viable yet, but I could definitely see this being good with another wave, which of course is like something we don't know yet how good the second wave is going to be. But the reason why I like this is because there is legitimately, and that is something that is not a guarantee with these TCG exclusive archetypes, literally all 7 of these cards make sense and have synergy with each other. Like there's been archetypes, TCG exclusive archetypes, where legitimately you would have we already only get 14 cards. We only get 14 cards for TCG exclusive archetypes in the first 2 sets, right? And it's very, very common that they just make a couple cards in these 14 that all kind of suck, right? And so you don't even have enough cards to choose from to build a real deck, right? I'm looking at Tistina, I'm looking at Goatee, right? Like a lot of the times you have these 14 cards and like 5, 6, 7 of them are generally unplayable, right? And that's why the archetype fails, right? Because you simply don't have enough good cards. All 7 of these cards, the worst one is the trap card, but even the trap card is okay in the context that you get it for free as a one-off maybe. All other cards are good cards for the archetype, right? The field spell is fine. The Vados is, I think, really good. The 3 main deck monsters are all the 3 other main deck monsters are all reasonable, especially this one, considering Bonfire makes it I think that makes it a good card, and the quick play spell is also really good. The only problem with the quick play spell, I'm gonna just look at it here. The only problem with the quick play spell is that it locks you into Pyro from the extra deck, which is a problem right now, because there's not many good things from the extra deck that are Pyro. There's generally not much you can really do with Pyro lock from the extra deck. It would need to be a deck that doesn't really go into its extra deck that much, which isn't impossible. You can make it work. You can make a deck work that doesn't need to go into its extra deck. You know, look at something like Labyrinth, right? Look at something like Flu. There's examples of decks that don't need to go into the extra deck and are still viable, as long as they give them enough good monsters in the next set that they actually have a good win condition. I could see it. Or they could give them a good extra deck monster. Yeah, they could give them a good Link monster or something like that. Unironically, so once again, I like the first wave here. I actually like it. I think it's got potential. I'm gonna be honest with you, Vados, this card, even regardless of whether this archetype fails or not, is a good hand trap. This is a good hand trap regardless. That you could actually side deck even in the current format. You're playing against Mannadium. This card is a good hand trap. This card is generically a really good hand trap, like into a bunch of decks. Like Mannadium, whatever you wanna call it. Like you can friggin' side deck this card and it's gonna be all right. It also stops evenly and imperm. Well, I mean, you're gonna have a hard time summoning it. Like when you go first, your opponent has evenly. You know, you're gonna not be able to do that. I don't think it's that good as a hand. It's not like Ash Blossom level of a hand trap. But it's a solid card that I think you will consider using. It's in certain formats. The only problem, people have been saying like, hey, it's good against it's good against Fire Kings. The problem with that is that Sanctuary protects Island, right? So if they open Sanctuary, you don't really get to mess with the Fire King Island. The quick play work. The quick play, if you're able to go first and set this thing against the field spell deck, the Awakening is insane, yeah. Like this thing just places, you can just place Obsidian over your opponent's field spell, and that's actually crazy. The funny thing about this archetype is that generally, if you're playing against a field spell strategy, these are really, really strong. That's going to be, it's like, it almost feels like playing Bestials against like a light or dark deck. You know what I mean? Like if this deck ever becomes somewhat viable, it's going to be a nightmare to play against if you're relying on some sort of field spells, which a lot of decks do. A lot of decks rely on field spells these days, you know? I'm looking at, I mean, even like you have Runic, you have Vanadium, you have even Labyrinth has a field spell. So many. Tearlaments has Pearl Rhino. It's kind of cool. Flu has a field spell. I mean, almost any deck has a field spell these days, let's be honest. Like that's Fire Kings, yeah. All right, first wave. Is this a playable deck? I don't see it. I don't see it yet. However, I'm seeing ways here of how they could make it work with a second wave. That's possible. Now, whether you want to take that gamble to pick up the cards before the second wave gets announced, up to you. I don't know. Like it's not, if the second wave is bad, the deck is going to be bad. If the second wave is good, the deck is going to be good, is my simple take, right? Which is honestly the most you can hope for with a TCG exclusive archetype these days. Because with something like Tistina announced, like when Tistina was announced or when whatever, like those didn't seem even potentially strong, even with a good second wave, right? But yeah, that's just the problem with this kind of stuff. But yeah. But I'm not disappointed. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not disappointed because my expectations were not like super high for the first wave. So I think it's okay. I genuinely think it's okay for the first wave of these cards to be like this. Why can't they make them good with the first wave? I don't understand. Why not? Burning Abyss and Cosmo are the only ones viable from the first wave. I don't know what exactly the problem is. I think one other archetype that you're missing is Dangers. I think Dangers are like one of the archetypes that was already good with the first wave, and the second wave was not as good anymore. It was mostly the first wave cards that were actually really, really good. I don't know what the reason is, but it appears that it's really hard to make a deck super viable with just 7 cards. Because somehow that is the rule, right? It's always 7 cards in the first wave, 7 cards in the second wave. So there's 2 options. You either spread out the power level, like you make 7 solid cards and then you make 7 more solid cards. If you want the archetype to be good immediately, you have to make those 7 cards omega broken, right? Like Dangers, Dangers were incredibly problematic because they were so good, right? So I don't know. Plenty of decks could be good with just 7 cards. Yeah, but then those 7 cards have to be incredibly strong, I think. Which I don't know if they want to overtune it like that. I feel like. Counter argument, Centurion. Well, yeah, but Centurion is only good because it 1-card combos you into Calamity. Do you want every TCG exclusive archetype to start out as Centurion, where they all 1-card combo into some sort of auto win? Because that's the reason why Centurion, like that's the reason why with just so few cards Centurion is viable is because they are all 1-card combos. Because if you only have 7 cards, if you only have 7 cards in your first wave, even if all of those cards are good and you put all of them into your deck, it's only 21 cards. So barely half your deck is going to be the new archetype, right? So in order for that archetype to even theoretically work, it has to have 1-card combos pretty much. Because you're not going to consistently draw hands with 2 to 3 cards from the new archetype, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, if you only have this few cards available, the cards all need to be incredibly powerful. How many cards do you think a TCG exclusive should have? I mean, 10 cards per set would be easily possible. Well, I agree. From the consumer side, it would be best if they released all of them at the same time. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I think most of this archetype is already designed. The second wave is probably already designed. This is just a theory. I don't know, but I'm thinking the second wave is probably already exists. They already know what they want to do with this archetype, right? So for us, it would be the best if they just put them all out there together, right? Because we then just know, okay, is this archetype good or is it not good? And then we can make an informed decision on, are we going to get those cards or are we not going to get those cards, right? And the reason they're not doing that is because that plays into people's copium, right? People have copium, even if there's an archetype that is not going to turn out good because the second wave isn't that good. It's like the first wave comes around the corner and people are going to pick up these cards even though they don't know yet whether they're going to be good or not, right? So I think from their perspective, it makes sense to do it in the way that they're doing it, right? It just means that for us, we're going to have to guess whether these cards are good or not. And you have 2 options now, right? You have 2 options. You either pick up the cards now when they're probably not going to be that expensive because no one is going to play Ashened yet, right? And then if you're lucky, the archetype becomes good and you've made a good deal. If you're unlucky, you know, sucks. You had to pay the price for the cards and now second wave sucks and you can't really play it, right? Or you wait. You don't pick them up yet because you don't know exactly whether they're going to be good or not, right? So if they become good, you're going to have to pay way more than you would if you had picked them up now, right? So I don't know. It's pretty much just how much copium you have on these. What other decks do we play with them? It doesn't, I'm gonna be honest with you, it doesn't seem like the kind of archetype that you want to play as an engine in a different deck. It doesn't really seem like it does that well, because one of the best cards in the deck is the quick play spell, and I believe if you want to make this deck work at some point, it has to be with the quick play spell. And locking yourselves into pyro monsters from deck or extra deck, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think you will be able to really do that in a Ashened mix kind of deck. Unless there's a pyro deck out there that has great synergy with it, but I don't really see it. I don't see it having synergy with the pyro archetypes that exist. Like, yeah. But it seems like the kind of deck that if they print good cards for it, you don't need a secondary engine. I think that's more like it. I think it's if the second wave is good, you can just play an Ashen deck and call it a day. Well, yeah. They should have 200 defense. I don't know if they should have 200 defense. I'm gonna be honest with you. Just Vados as non-engine can be okay in certain formats. I could see that. Like it's just a hand trap for field spells, which is okay. All right, that's Ashened. I am not disappointed. It's not great yet, but I'm also not disappointed because I didn't expect it to be insane.